Welcome to Shorty SuperCoach, and today we're going to have another instalment of Shorty's Shortlist where we preview all 18 clubs in regards to their 2016 SuperCoach prospects. And today we're looking at the Saints, who offer up a few players that are certainly worth discussing. As I mentioned in the past, this isn't your preview of the absolute obvious players, your Pendleburys, Ablets, all those gun players, because I'm not telling you anything you don't know with those. We're just having a look at this early stage. SuperCoach is about a week away from being released to the public. Just a few of the players that should be on your radar, worth discussing, and actually have pros and cons rather than just really obvious picks that everyone wants to scrounge in their team. So first off the bat is Lee Montagna, and I reckon he's one of the more intriguing prospects and will provoke a fair bit of discussion throughout the pre-season. He's a forward midfielder, and a lot of people go bang, clicking our forwards, oh gee, Lee Montagna, lock him in, bang. He's at about 600k off the back of his 111 average last year, which he bounced back last year, which was very impressive. For me, he's an upgrade target. I will not be selecting him in my starting side, and I'll tell you why. He's 32 and a half years old once round one comes round, so he's getting to that older stage, and he's past 5 seasons. The average has been since 2011, 100.7, 99.2, 114.8, 89.4, and then bouncing back with 111 average last year. They make for pretty good numbers, especially as a forward. Don't get me wrong, he will be in many sides and should be in everyone's side come round 23, but the point I'll be making is that I don't think he's going to get any more expensive, and he's only going to drop in price as far as I'm concerned. I think he's a very consistent player in terms of season to season average. He has only dropped under 97 average since 2007 once, which was at 89.4 in 2014. But as a week-to-week prospect, his consistency probably isn't his strong point. Probably in his peak in 2009 and 10, where he dominated with averages 125 and 115. Of course, he was consistent there, but of late, he's more has hot streaks and then can back off to some 70 to 85s and then go bang with a hot streak of 120 pluses. In his last 58 games over the past 3 years, he's had 19 120 plus scores. So that's extremely impressive numbers. I mean, when he gets a ton, it's 120 plus. But for me, I can honestly only see him getting cheaper. I know that we're going to eventually want him, and some people might say, well, if you're going to get him eventually, just lock him in. But I think, yes, there are players that we call players who had value and bargains, but even when you pick your premiums, you certainly want a little bit of value, even if it's the slightest. I always hesitate unless they're the absolute best of the best that you can bank on, just selecting them for the top dollar. Sometimes you got to invest in the top dollar because you know what you're going to get. With Montagna, I'm pretty confident we'll get a 3-figure average, but whether that's 100 average or 110 could make or break it. Especially, I just think in the opening rounds, there's such a possibility, depending on the Armitages, the Stevens, his role as a elder statesman is in a developing side. There are a few queries on him, and simply his age. I mean, he's not getting any better. He certainly had a great year last year, but for me, I just think he's going to be too risky. Not even risky, but potentially the odds are, and very extremely good odds, that he will drop in value. So I think make him a number one upgrade target for sure, but for now, I certainly won't be putting him in my starting side. Next up, we have an extremely talented and exciting prospect for the Saints in Jack Billings. He's a wonderful player and one of the more exciting players on the Saints list. He'll be priced awkwardly at 450k after averaging 84.3 from his 9 games last year. Only played the 9 games after suffering a stretch fracture in the shin, which was a bit disappointing and a bit concerning as well. So after he played rounds 2 to 10, and then he was out for the rest of the season. So disappointing for Jack. A few people might look at him and go, oh gee, he's a chance to really go bang 90 plus average or something like that, and he's a bit cheaper than most. But a word of warning, no doubt, I don't think he's a player to be looking at. His 143 against the Dogs has been his best game in his AFL career, a short one at that so far, but 22 touches, 4 goals too, and they were clutch goals, and that's what I love about him. He stepped up to the moment. He could have passed, he could have panicked, but a few of those goals he just backed himself in and slotted them. That's a mark of a real rising champion, and there's no doubt he'll be a gun in the future. He also laid the 4 tackles in that game and is quite a consistent tackler, but as far as I'm concerned, that 84.3 average was largely built up by that 143. He didn't hit the ton in any other game. He had a few 90s, mind you, but that was his only century for the whole season. So I don't think he's a player you'll be looking at, despite the fact that his average could go up to around that 85-90 mark. But don't get carried away by, the extreme excitement from all fans really about the talent that he is. No doubt he's going to be a great player, but I just think consistency at this stage is not going to be his go, and for that reason I'm saying steer clear. But you might be able to sneak him in for a late pick in a SuperCoach draft. That could be a handy selection, no doubt, but not for Classic as far as I'm concerned. Next up is another young talent, Bailey Rice. Now you can get him down in the back line, and he's a great halfback flanker as well. He's obviously going to be in his first season here, but there was much discussion about him picking out of the Blues and the Saints, and he went with the Saints, so I don't blame him on there. But he's a very clean player, probably needs to work on his endurance, but the main things, like most draftees, struggle with endurance when they come to the club, but his main features on a positive note, he's a great kick, rebounds off the back line extremely well. In the TAC Cup he averaged 21 touches and nearly 5 rebound 50s a game. He's a right foot kick and a very good one at that. So they also say when I was reading that he's physically ready to step up. Played a couple of VFL games, which is very promising. 184 centimetres, 83 kilos. So physically you'd think he's just about there. If he can work his way into the Saints lineup at that bargain basement price of a drafty, I think he'll be in many a side, and rightfully so. They're the main ones for the Saints, no doubt, but a couple of shout-outs to a few players that may or may not feature in sides this year and certainly down the track. Nathan Freeman came from Collingwood, of course, came across to the Saints with quite a bit of excitement attached to him, but once again, those hamstrings have let him down. He had a strain of the hammy in December, which is about a month or so ago, and look, that's got to be an absolute, look out, seriously. I mean, he hasn't played a game of footy yet, was struggling to get on the field, on the park at all with Collingwood. Change of club, hopefully that would change. It hasn't. It's not a major injury by any means, but certainly he's got to be managed, surely. His pace is his main asset, the former number 10 pick, and I think they're not going to be just letting such a talented player with wheels to burn just run around with hammies that maybe aren't 100% fit. So they're going to probably manage him throughout the year because he's only young, he's about 21. And look, they're going to manage him throughout this year, I would imagine, and certainly through the pre-season. They're going to make sure he's absolutely firing come middle of the season if he can get that continuity within his game. But he's very cheap. He's 123k, so for that reason we have to look at him. But I think in that midfield, around that price, we should have a plethora of options. So for that in mind, he's probably a little bit more risky. But hey, if he gets into that NAB challenge playing footy, he's looking good, had a solid month under his belt, you might consider him. Luke Dunstan is an absolute favourite of mine. If you caught my Melbourne preview not too long ago, I spoke about Jack Viney and mentioned, he's probably not a player you're going to be looking at as your classic, but down the track he definitely will be and possibly draft. Luke Dunstan fits the exact same category. I love Dunstan. He's a great player. He's probably had slightly second-year blues in a way. I think from memory off the top of my head he struggled with a couple of niggling injuries at times, but if not, he didn't quite reach the heights that maybe some expected him to do. But he's a former first round pick back in 2013. He's tough, he's in and under, wins clearances, wins contested footy, which is well beyond those numbers for many at his age. He's about 21 come season start, and he's a future gun as far as I'm concerned. 141 SuperCoach in his third game of AFL footy against West Coast in 2014. That shows what he's capable of, and I think as opportunity comes his way in that Saints midfield, which is a developing midfield, I think Dunstan will be a man that we probably don't look at this season because he's just priced too awkwardly in that midfield. But likewise, he might be a ladder pick in your draft and be a bit of a steal, because I could see him averaging around that 90 mark if he can get fit and have a good season. So that wraps it up for the Saints. I will end it on a bit of a shout out to some, a couple of Saints that have served us extremely well and been warriors of the SuperCoach game. But unfortunately, while they haven't retired from AFL, they've probably retired themselves from ever being in our SuperCoach sides, I feel. It's Nick Rewalt and Sam Fisher, but a tribute to them because they've been absolutely outstanding servants for us over the journey, especially Nick Rewalt. Averaged 90.8 last year off of 17 games, which is far from poor. You certainly wouldn't be sneezing at that. But the last 5 seasons, he's just had the one average season in the 100 mark. I think that was 3 years ago, where it just eclipsed the 3 figures. He's 33.5 come the season start. So I think, unfortunately for Nick, he was once probably the best picks in the forward line with the way he could run up, take plenty of marks, just burn off his opponent and blow them up on the lead. But I think now he's probably just a guy who's going to average anywhere from 80 to 90, maybe slightly over, but he's not a guy we'll be looking at. And Sam Fisher, he's nearly 34 come round 1. Injuries got him last year. He averaged 92 in the 7 games in 2014 and was started last year with the first 7 games averaging 94.4, which is impressive. But injuries got him. He averaged about 80. Mind you, I had him in the early parts of the season when he got me a few tons and then he dished up a 33. So I got sucked in ever so slightly thinking we had one last good year with Sammy Fisher, but he let me down with that injury, and I don't think anyone will be looking at him ever again. If there was ever a chance that we might, it was with the fact Jay Carlisle was coming along and would hold that real key defensive role, and Fisher might be able to float around the packs and get some easy possessions and also intercept, which he does so well reading the play. But that's obviously not the case. Carlisle won't be playing, and I think Fisher will certainly play more of a lockdown role, and while he'll score you the odd good points, I think he's a man that we can look back fondly on, but certainly won't be picking in our defence this year. But just a few shout outs and a tribute to a couple of guns who have served us well. If you like the video, certainly give it a like and give me some feedback on some Saints players you'll be picking, and if I missed anyone that you really like the looks of this year. And of course, give the channel a subscribe. That's the most important thing, because keep you updated with everything I'm producing. We're getting even closer to SuperCoach coming out to the public, which is exciting, and once that comes around, I'll be upping the ante with more stuff that we're doing and a few different things, and we'll certainly hone in on the more exact positions of your premiums, your mid prices, and those bench and rookie players. So hit that subscribe button, and I'll catch you guys all soon.